Stupid big point clouds are unfortunately here to stay in civil drafting and modeling, so we need a way to handle them. Back in 2017, you used to be able to bring point clouds straight into Civil 3D, particularly LAS files, and process out trees and stuff like that. That functionality has obviously been ported over to Recap, but we can't really filter out trees or anything like that anymore. So I want to show you a workflow I've been using where you can use a combination of a free product called CloudCompare, Recap, and Civil 3D to process point clouds into usable products. So here we go, check it out. So first up, the first point of call for you is going to be using CloudCompare, particularly to process all those point cloud files. So I've got a couple of LAS files I've downloaded from the Elevation Spatial framework, the Elvis portal in Australia. You can download tons of these free ones, but you'll see these around. You can also process things like XYZ, CSVs. CloudCompare is very much a just drag drop sort of application. You just drag drop it in. It is good if you can remove all the things you don't need. In this particular case, I want to bring everything down just to classification, because all I really want to do is get the ground points out of the LAS files. There is other options there. I'm not going to go into them today. So that CloudCompare can process it, it will tell you that it's going to do a shift. Don't really worry about this, because what it will do is it'll shift it back when you export it at the end. So you don't really need to worry about it. Just say yes to all. So reads it in. So there we go. We've got about 5.5 million points in there in no time at all, which is pretty cool. I mean, if I had to do that in Recap, I'd have to sit there waiting for it to process and then index and then come in. Not to mention, I wouldn't even be able to see the classification. So in this, you can actually see the trees being the green. There's actually 3 shades of green. You've got high vegetation, medium vegetation, and low vegetation. And then you've got the blue, which is the ground points. Most LAS files will come to you like this. So anyway, the first thing we want to do is filter down to ground only. So I can select both of my point clouds there in the DB tree on the left. Go to edit and go to scalar fields, and I can say filter by value. Now you can go check the LAS classification index, but ground, there's about 40 classification numbers, 0 to 40 in LAS files. Number 2 is ground points. So I'm going to filter down here. I'm going to just change the range to 2 and hit export. So now it's unticked the original clouds. I could always tick them back on and see them if I wanted to. And it's showing me these cloud extracts where it's only got the ground points now. And you can see I've just got this nice smooth ground. You can actually see a few roads and stuff in there. But these are still pretty heavy. And we can always check how many points are in here. I mean, there's 1.8 million points in that cloud. And there's 1.6 million points in that cloud. So I typically even filter these down further in here. I know it's possible to do this in Civil 3D later, but I think I prefer to just get the processing done in here because it's just so much quicker. So I can select both of these again. I can say edit, and what we can do here is say subsample. And the sampling will be based on space between them. And I'm going to say, look, let's go down to I don't know, something like 300 mil and see what that filters it down to. So hit OK. So now we get 2 new trees down here. Let's go check how many points we got in there now. Still about 1.3 million in that one, and still about 1.4 million in that one. So maybe we could always go a little bit further. I'll tick on these again, and I'll say subsample. Let's maybe bring it up to even 0.5 meter. So now I've got, there you go, look, 526,000 in there and 487,000 in there. So that's perfect. Now to get this into Recap, I could either save these as individual files, or I'm going to make it a bit easier for Recap. I'm just going to merge them in LAS Tools here, in CloudCompare. So that's now merged together into one file. And this is the sort of kooky thing about CloudCompare. It doesn't really say export, but if you go File Save, that will export whatever's currently selected on your screen. So I'm going to say File Save, choose a LAS format. I'm just going to dump in that same directory where we were here. This can be called combined. and it's 0.5 meter thin. It's class 2. Does give you some options around compression and las. Just pick optimal or original. It's not really going to make that much of a difference. And done. So now we can come out of Cloud Compare and head over to Recap and create yourself a new point cloud project. You'll still need to use Recap, unfortunately. I think this is EG Survey 2018 maybe. And I'll choose the directory to save this in here. Proceed. Now we can just go to that combined las file here and just drag drop it in. And hit import. So give that 2 secs. Only has to import about 1 million points now instead of 5.5 million points. So it will not take very long at all. As you can see, we're straight in here. And that's filtered down nicely for us. And that will be ready to bring into straight into Civil 3D. So let's go. Let's give it a go. Hit home, hit save. And now I don't need recap. I can go over to Civil 3D. And first thing we can do is go up to the insert ribbon here. And I can say attach a point cloud, C drive. And it's under software, compare test. Let's bring in the RCP there. It's just like an XREF where it comes in. When you first bring a point cloud into Civil 3D from Recap, it'll automatically change your mode to 3D wireframe. It doesn't say 3D in it, but it is 3D wireframe. It can be pretty performance lagging if you keep this on wireframe. So the first thing I recommend you do is switch to 2D wireframe. You don't really need to see the point cloud to be able to turn it into a surface. So it'll just switch this text to, can't be displayed in a 2D visual style. You can still select it though, and you can say create a surface from point cloud. And one of the things I recommend doing is, follow a good naming convention for your name of your surface, but ensure you put a link to what files you use for the source. So using las data contain, and I can go over to here and say, if this would possibly be, your correspondence in directory or your source directory. From there, and I could also say and processed in Cloud Compare, well, unspelt, 0.5 meter thin, class 2 points only. Pick a style for this, existing ground, 1 meter. Now it's going to tell you here, it's going to bring 1 million points in to this session. It is possible we could filter down further. I could make that distance between points a meter. I'm happy with at less than 2 million points generally. Although if you are working with, gradings, I would highly recommend ensuring this is even below 500,000 points because it can cause lots of performance issues. Important not to hit create surface here yet because there's one more setting that you'll need to change. This is the last section about non-ground point filtering, and the idea of it is some point clouds that have trees in them and have cars in them, Civil 3D will do its best to try and filter them out. I find this is only really relevant for photogrammetric surveys and not really relevant for las files that are already pre-classified, so just switch that to no filter. Create surface. Give that 2 seconds, and there it is. Now if you do leave the filter on by accident, you'll know because it's going to take a lot longer for it to bring in that surface, and you can tell it's come in really, really quickly. If I didn't need all of this las data, I could always process it to a box in that area as well. One last thing that's still available to you that you can do, that if you want to filter this down even further, is using simplification. Now I'm just going to recreate another surface from the point cloud so I can show you what I mean. We'll call this EG Survey 2018 Simplified. And I'll use a different style, let's say propose orange next. And I'll just process all the point clouds again. Say no, filter. And while that's doing that, I'll just draw a little section. And so now we've got 2 point clouds in here, but this 2 point cloud surfaces in here. But the orange one, which right now is exactly the same, I'm going to go into Edit Surface up here, and I'm going to say Simplify Surface. Now what this will do is it'll attempt to, and I'm not going to use point removal because we've already done that, but I'm going to use edge contraction, where it tries to find essentially similar triangles that have a similar plane, and then turn them into less triangles, like so. So edge contraction, next. Now if I'm going to use this at 50%, you can probably even up it as far, I use it as far as 70% for my design surfaces, and hit finish. So it might take you a little while, like maybe 30 seconds to a minute to simplify that surface, but you'll see that the advantage is well worth it. Highly recommend simplifying. So the grey contours in the background are the old surface, and the orange contours in front are the simplified surface. And just from plan view straight up, you can see there's almost no, such a marginal difference. I mean, you can barely notice it. And just to even exaggerate the point further, if I turn this into a section and we have a look at it, just to see the difference in section. And I'll grab that guy, surface profile. Let's bring in EG Survey Add 2018. Change the simplified version to orange so we don't confuse our brains. And change the other one to, I don't know, red. That will confuse your brain, but that's fine. Geological section, create profile view, done. Let's go have a look at it. I'll set this to 2 viewports. And if we up the exaggeration on this to really be able to see if we can even see the difference, let's go to something stupid like 50. And I'll just edit the above below on that so we can see it a bit better. Also change the vertical axis to 1 meter. So almost so little difference. And the advantage is the orange surface has only 304,000 points, and the grey surface, our original, well, even filtered down point cloud, has 1 million points. And you really notice this when you start doing things like creating volume surfaces, when you start creating gratings, when you start pasting surfaces together. It's really important to be able to filter it down as much as you can so that you can really get the performance out of Civil 3D. Because a lot of those points are just not necessary for the purposes of design. And yeah, really, that's the finished result. Any comments, hit me up in the comment thread down the bottom. And of course, CloudCompare is a free tool, so obviously the owners only sort of get by on donations. So if you do start using it heavily, I highly recommend donating. You can donate either straight from their webpage, or when you install. I think there's a link at the end when you install to donate. Please do if you use it heavily. Thanks for watching. Talk soon.